Welcome back to Psalm 22, or 21 in the Greek, and in this video we'll be taking a look at verses 9 and 10. If you recall, the psalmist has been lamenting that he's got so many enemies who are shaking their heads at him and mocking him. Now he's going to turn back to the Lord and confess the closeness that they have and the hope that that brings. Let's read it together. Hatisue ha expasas me ek gastros, he elpismu apomaston tes metrasmu, epise eperiphein ek metras, ek quilias metrasmu theasmu e su. Couple things I'll point out just as sort of big picture things to orient us before we get into the details. First off, a lot of vocabulary here that you might not be familiar with, but we'll make sure you get a feel for it. Second, notice that there is a nice, elegant structure here. It's going to begin with the su a. It's going to end with an a su here. Also, as we've already seen so many times in this psalm, there's this intense personal pronoun thing going back and forth. So we got the you here, then the me, another me, back to you. You got me, you got you again. So once more, just reminding us that this is this beautiful, intense, impassioned conversation between the psalmist, which we've seen Jesus has taken this on his own lips. He's voicing David's own thoughts here. It's a conversation between him and his heavenly Father. So just good to remind ourselves of that. Let's just go through it now. So hatisu e. So this is now the psalmist responding to the fact that he's got these opponents who are attacking him. Now he pivots and says, therefore, or because, or, since. He says, you are. That's your second singular version of a me here. Now we have a nice substantival participle from expao, and this is a nominative singular masculine, aorist active participle here with that sas ending, and this means to draw out. And so you are the one who drew out, and then who's the one he drew out? Of course, it's me. So you drew me from the gastros. Now this is the genitive form of this noun, and it means womb. So you're the one who brought me out of the womb, ascribing divine agency to that childbirth process, of course. And then after the comma, there's no verb in the next clause, but basically he's reiterating back to the Father the nature of who he is. So he says, you are my hope. You have to kind of supply that verb there. So my hope from the maston, this is going to be the breasts, and it's tes metrasmu of my mother. So from my very point of birth, you have been my hope. And so that's kind of the first pass through. That's verse 9 here, or 8 in the Greek. And then you see almost a reversal. It's the same basic ideas, but you now start with the mother and then move back to God himself. So there's a nice elegance to that. So he says, epise, upon you, eperiphein. This is from epiripto, and this is a first singular aorist passive indicative. You may be wondering, well, I don't really see a passive theta here. That's theoretically right there. After that phi, the phi makes it go away, but you see the eta nu ending. Now that verb means to be thrown or to be cast. And so what's the sort of conclusion here? To be cast from the womb. So upon you, that is upon God, I have been thrown or cast from the womb. Or you could even take metros here. Notice it's obviously related to metros with the omicron, but this is a slightly different word here, similar root form. It typically means womb, can also mean from birth, something like that. And then similar ideas repeated. Equilias, koilia does also mean womb. So these two words here are synonyms, and it's the womb of my mother. So that's repeated. We saw that up here. And so from the womb of my mother, and then we have this lovely address to the Father, Theos mu esu, you are my God, similar to the you are my hope. And so what's beautiful about this is a couple of different things. First off, the psalmist here is saying that from the womb, God is in control. He's the one who's brought me out. And from that very moment in this personhood that I possess, God has been my God from the very beginning. So that's lovely. And then when you think about it in terms of Jesus being the effective psalmist here, because he's taken this psalm on his own lips, this is a great reminder of his own incarnation, being the Son of God, both in terms of his ontological existence, eternally begotten, but he's also Son of God in his humanity, through the womb of the Virgin Mary, and from that he is, as to his humanity, professing that you are my God from the very beginning. So love a little insight into really kind of some good reflections about the incarnation this close relationship between Christ and the Heavenly Father and so forth. This verse is not quoted in the New Testament so far as I'm aware, but one interesting thing is that it does show up in kind of a remix form in the Qumran Hodayot. That's what this is. So 1QH is the Hodayot, sometimes known as the Thanksgiving hymns. It's a collection of new poetic compositions that sound a lot like Psalms, but they're not actually the Psalms. That's a different scroll from Qumran. And you read this, "You, O God, are my refuge and my stronghold, the rock of my strength and my fortress." So you got a lot of sort of Psalm 18 vibes there. "In you I will be protected from all, my rescue until eternity." Then we have this vague allusion to Psalm 22. "For you, from my fathers, have known me. From the womb," there we go, now it's broken here, can't fill that in. "My mother, you have been good to me from the breast of she who conceived me." So you can tell it's not a direct citation, but most scholars would argue that there's something going on here where the writer of this composition has also reflected on Psalm 22. So thought I would throw that out there. It's interesting, the kind of interpretive history of Psalm 22 there at Qumran. So hopefully that's been interesting and enjoyable. So that's it for these two verses.